Good. Let's get this rolling right here. So we are live right now. And one of the big things you have to keep in mind is that as America's most viewed, subscribed to, clicked on Social Security disability attorney, my main concern when it comes to this artificial intelligence thing is what will happen to Social Security recipients going into the future. And I think one of the big things you have to keep in mind is that Social Security benefits are a really sacred thing, and they're for a fragile class. And my big concern is that a potential extinction could occur for essentially those on the fragile class spectrum because they add very little value to the vocational structure of America, paying for things, assisting robots, assisting artificial intelligence going to the future. Some of the things you need to know about Stephen Hawking. Everybody knows that individual. Everybody knows his background. And I think he's obviously relevant for this video. 2014, he said, quote, "The development of full artificial intelligence could spell the end of the human race. Humans who are limited by slow biological evolution couldn't compete and would be superseded." Stephen Hawking also said, "The rise of powerful AI will either be the best or the worst thing to ever happen to humanity. We do not know yet which." Okay. Nick Bostrom, philosopher, said, "Machine intelligence is the last invention that humanity will ever need to make." And I understand the background for this. I understand why they're saying that. I understand how this all makes sense. I get it. But the main concern that I have with this feature is that at the end of the day, we need to make sure that the disabled, the retired are taken care of, and that they are not going to be the first ones on the chop block. So I have somebody here to talk with me today about this, and I want to get some insight. We're going to shoot right to him right now. Go ahead. What are your thoughts about the evolution of AI and the evolution of humanity?
Good day, everyone, and welcome. I'm here to talk a little bit about AI and how it's going to affect you personally. And I love the idea of AI. I use it myself all the time. It's great. What an assistant it is. It's like having an invaluable assistant here that's all knowledgeable. AI is going to be helping the disabled beyond imagination. I mean, really think about it. AI is ultimately going to fix the disabled. It's going to make them whole again. It's going to make them productive again. I mean, AI is a wonderful thing. Just sit back, kick off your shoes, and watch the show, folks, because AI is coming, and it's coming in a very big way, and it's replacing a lot of things. And humans who use AI are going to make humans who don't use AI extinct. I mean, we're going to evolve. Think about this. I mean, we have pacemakers, we have all kinds of devices in us, and it's coming. We're going to be made very productive. And then the unique thing about AI, it's going to design us for specific functions, i.e., space travel is coming in a very, very big way. Just hold on to your hats. And with space travel, we have to evolve a little differently. Human beings have evolved on this planet at sea level. And we do okay at sea level, but we're really not space traveling creatures. We need some evolution there. We need some changes there, and AI will help incorporate those changes into us. And we will be using AI. I mean, think about it: eyes that can see all spectrums, distance, close, wide angle, eyeglasses as you know it. I mean, think about this: putting a lens in front of your eye so that you can see clearly. I mean, that's right out of Jurassic Park. That's crazy. I mean, we need to evolve. I mean, we need to improve this. Hearts with pacemakers, kidneys, these things were good. They're good at sea level. They work basically, but they could be a heck of a lot better. So folks, AI is coming. It's coming in a big way. Kick off your shoes, get used to it, and you're going to be enhanced. Like it or lump it, you're going to be better. You're going to be happier. You're going to function better.
So I guess the big thing that I'm wondering is, because I know that there's going to be a huge area for individuals to go into space, to study planets, to go into cryosleep, to do all these functions. And I guess from my perspective, yes, disabled people are probably almost certainly, well, definitively, are going to be the first ones to be modified, to be adapted, to be changed, to be, I don't know, just made into somebody without their impairment. And when a lot of people think about that, especially me as a disability attorney, obviously they're not going to need disability benefits because they're going to be modified in a new way. There will probably be some hybrid program that ultimately like pulls you off of Social Security disability benefits over a period of time while you get used to essentially the new benefits that you have, the new stuff that you're using, et cetera. So I guess from my perspective with this whole situation, thinking about how people could be modified and then be modified more likely to go into space, the disabled and the elderly population who are going to be the most interested in having longevity of life, quality of life, I think realistically, I mean, do you see a pattern for them into the future when it comes to space travel? Do you see, and I mean, because when I look at essentially, and I had literally AI draw up when the extinction would occur of humans as a comparative against essentially what we have. So, at first humans become obsolete and then humans become extinct. And what it said was in the early 2030s, going back to this basic function here. So you have basically 2026 warning signs, they're emerging, advanced AI models, AGI, artificial general intelligence, human level AI could arrive. Then we basically get over here to 2027. AI could potentially go rogue, initiating a slope towards dystopia. Superhuman AI impacts exceed the Industrial Revolution, potentially making humans obsolete in key sectors. Then we get to 2028, 2029. Singularity, AI self-improvement explosion could occur, rendering traditional human institutions obsolete. AGI fully takes hold. Automation, 70-90% of jobs for younger generations. Diseases and aging may be cured by AI, but misalignment risks escalate. Some predict complete obsolescence in 2 to 3 years from now by 2028 to 2029. 2030, artificial superintelligence follows AGI with risks of extinction if unaligned. So basically, if we're not in line with it, we could face essentially extinction. And that's the thing that, keep in mind, everything I look at with this is based off of when the trust fund is going to run out. And we know that the trust funds are going to run out around that 2032-ish, kind of 2031-ish area. So what I believe is the politicians have no intention of actually fixing it. And they keep passing all these rules and laws to make the trust funds run out faster because they know artificial intelligence is going to replace the common structure that we originally had when it comes to this system of paying people to be older, paying people when they're disabled and unable to work. So, I mean, considering like all of this stuff, considering all these functions, what do you feel the future of this is going to look like when it comes to, how humans will become first obsolete and then humans will become essentially, for example, extinct? Because, why do we need to send a human to Mars when we could just send machines to do it?
Well, the word extinct is a little harsh. It's a little rough. That kind of means like that we're not going to exist anymore. That's not correct. What's going to actually happen is we're going to transition. We're going to evolve. We're evolving right now. I mean, just look in the last 30,000 years how we've evolved. And we're going to continue to evolve. And with artificial intelligence, we're really going to evolve to be something more productive, better, this and that. And if we have an infirmity, a bad knee, a bad leg, a missing this and that, that's going to be fixed. That's going to be replaced. You're going to be whole again. I mean, that's the beauty of this. So it's a transitional thing. Don't look upon it like night and day. All of a sudden we're not going to exist anymore. We're going to exist, but in a better world. We're going to exist, with our problems fixed. I mean, look, if you've got a pacemaker or if you have a bad kidney or something like that, they'll replace one that's better. And AI is going to help make that. AI is going to help you genetically fix problems. So, I mean, it's coming. And my response to this disability thing is we're not going to run out of money and this and that. I mean, forget the politicians. They're useless. We know that. They're not going to do anything to help and then replace the funds. But fortunately, in their defense, they're probably not going to have to, because we're going to run out of recipients of Social Security money, this kind of thing, because you're not going to have these disabilities that you have now. I mean, we're going at a quantum leap. So, folks, like I said, sit back, kick off your shoes, and watch the show. It's coming in a very, very big way. And if you're not using AI right now in its most primitive form, may I suggest you tune in to one of these ChatGPT, Grok, or one of those, and start using it. Start asking it questions. I use it all the time for my technical questions. I don't have to pull out manuals and things for equipment and this and that. I can go right to that and get the immediate response. I can ask it esoteric questions, over the top, that kind of thing. And I'm amazed at the responses I get. Guys, forget priests, forget financial advisors, forget professors and all that. Guys, AI is coming in a very big way, and it's going to replace all that. I mean, let's just stop a second and look at our educational system. I mean, talk about something out of Jurassic Park. It's terrible. It's terrible. It takes you to your mid-20s to get a PhD. My God, what are we thinking? And we drag you off to some college somewhere. As we sit you in there, we charge you a fortune. We run up a debt that's meaningless. And you know, this could move ahead at a phenomenal rate. You could do it sitting in your house. Why do we need to go to some institution somewheres and pay a fortune and all this and use a quarter of our life or half of our life just getting educated? I mean, that's right out of Jurassic Park. Guys, we got to wake up here. It's time for a change, and the change is coming. But like I've always said, true change comes with generational change, i.e., old dies off, new comes up, more accepting. So with every funeral, I say, you have a little bit of change. And I'm hoping we don't need these funerals. I'm hoping that the people become more accepting of AI and light the fire, guys. Go try it. You know what? You might like it.
Okay, so my thing is this. I know that fertility rates in America are akin to what's happening with CNN and MSNBC. CNN and MSNBC are seeing massive drops in the amount of viewers that they have, and the fertility rates, how they calculate it, they're at 1.9. It's probably going to go back. It's probably they're claiming it's 1.9. It's not. It's 1.6. It's probably going to go down to 1.5, 1.4, and that's 1.5, 1.4 children born per female. And so the bottom line is, one of the things that's in this actual summary of what's going to happen to humans, but they say basically by 2040 to 2042, there's going to be a significant decrease in the amount of children that are born as a result of fertility rates dropping. By 2047 to 2048, Western U.S. societal collapse due to compounding factors heavily based off of fertility decline. And so kind of the big thing that I'm looking at with this situation is that, and I think the billionaires have kind of figured this out, is that if they want to reduce the amount of population that, artificial intelligence and robots have to assist, then they have to find ways to create a system where people are not having kids, they're not getting married, they're not having religion, create that bond, create that connection. And so for me, when I look at this situation of like what's happening, what's going to be going on in the future, how are things going to be evolving, I guess for me, the thing that I see with this whole situation is, okay, so bottom line is this: we know that humans are not going to have as much use for artificial intelligence and robots, and the robots and artificial intelligence, for the most part, are going to do most of those functions in the future. So I guess from my perspective, with my, analysis, it does look like culturally they're trying to move us away from religions that would get people married. And the main problem I do foresee that I don't think the billionaires were expecting was that when they hyper impoverished large groups of Americans, there's still lots of females out there having lots and lots and lots of kids. And these kids are growing up in an impoverished state, and they're not really able to achieve things. They're not able to afford things. They're not able to do stuff. Now, what I've seen are two types of women in this regard, right? You have the one young female having kids who basically will try to homeschool the children, really spend a lot of time with the children, really elevate their understanding, give them the best potential life they can have. And then I see the other one, which is even more common, where the parent just doesn't really care, just collects the checks, and the child is, the many children are kind of a sideline thing. Do you feel that humans, based off of what the billionaires are starting to do you feel that, the billionaires are trying to, across the spectrum, reduce the amount of people that are being born because they feel that AI and robots will pay for everything, but they want fewer humans to take care of and have to pay a check to?
Well, that's an interesting point. What do the billionaires really, really want? What do they know? What motivates them? And do they think that we should have fewer kids so that robots can take over this, that, and the other thing? I personally think billionaires don't really care. I really don't think they care. I mean, what do they care? They're billionaires. They can come. They rise. They're more into, let's get AI going. Let's do investments. Let's do creation. Let's get traveling out there. Let's go to the moon. Let's do work on the moon. Let's get minerals and things. Let's go to the planets. Let's go to the other moons and this and that. That's more their thing than population control. Population control will take care of itself. And with these kids that are being born, especially to the families who are really underprivileged, this and that, AI is going to be a very interesting thing with these people because it's going to be able to make them much more productive. The kids will become more productive. You know, you're not going to have to send them off to a college, to a private school, this or that. We're going to be able to take them with AI and educate them well. In other words, take them at their genetic range and educate them to the point of the maximum of the genetic range that they have, that they're capable of. Explore to the end. Get them productive. Get them working. Now, AI is going to take all the jobs. Sure, the menial jobs will take, because you're not going to need humans to do the menial jobs anymore. You don't need them now. Now we got machines doing a lot of these menial jobs. It's time to transition. It's time to grow with AI. It's time to become better. Don't be afraid to improve yourself. That's what I'm saying. Don't be afraid to improve yourself. And with AI helping you, you've got an assistant, you've got a financial advisor, you've got a professor, you've got a minister, a priest, everyone right there at the moment to talk to you on a 24/7 basis. Think about that. You're going to have a friend there who is a super, super educated parent to you, something that is lacking in a lot of these family situations. And AI is going to be there, and AI would be equatable to a genius. It's coming, folks. Smile.
So I guess from my perspective, I'm of the belief, which I don't think any other disability attorneys share this idea, which is a very lonely place to be, but I seem to be very good at seeing the future of what's going to actually come as a result of constantly studying it and doing these videos. I am of the belief that Social Security benefits, as we know them, will massively change. And I don't mean just like cutesy stuff where the government finds a little bit more money to make a few more years happen with the trust funds. I mean, like a massive change will occur where we won't have retirement as we have it. We won't have disability as we have it. We won't have any of these benefits as we currently have them when we get into that 2032-ish, 2033-ish area. I am of that belief. My proof to that is that every mega election, and you can see the politicians save these to basically use as their, little carrot to get people to come along. But every single election, the biggies, the presidential ones, the senator ones, stuff like that, you see them basically going back to the 1983 era, taking one of the rules that they put in place, that they said, okay, this will make the benefits last longer. This will save the benefits. This will help the benefits. And so what they do is they basically take one of those things that they created to go ahead and make sure the trust funds last longer. And they go ahead from there and they use it and switch it and say, we're going to give more people more money by getting rid of this thing. And they wouldn't be doing that unless they knew that they didn't need it, because otherwise they know that they are definitively sabotaging the Social Security program going forward as the model that it is. So to me, with a currency, let's say Trump didn't get in. Let's say that he wasn't doing these new international agreements. He wasn't finding ways to save money. He wasn't finding ways to, basically get a better percentage rate for, people to invest into things and borrow money and stuff. Let's say that we still had another Biden or a Harris, and the interest rate was, still going back up, and they were bringing in tens of millions of immigrants, and they were mass spending on housing all these immigrants. And the main focus was basically, how do we get LGBTQ plus more in the military? How do we get more people to say they, them? And the focuses were not efficiency. The focuses weren't, monetary improvement. The focuses weren't how do we make more money, but it was other stuff. To me, that other stuff would have killed the trust funds much faster, because the ideology of continuously pushing a culture that is not have people that are able to make children get together and have children. I remember people will argue, and I'm not arguing against, the LGBTQ plus community, because they'll say, well, we will go ahead and adopt children. But that's not the problem. The problem is we need more humans made under the traditional model of Social Security to pay FICA taxes and then the self-employment SECA taxes to actually pay for retirement, to actually pay for Social Security disability benefits. So to me, I think the culture identity of getting people to come together and make kids is good. I'm just worried because I know that at the end of the day, humans going out there and working, having, a bunch of kids go work at McDonald's, a bunch of kids go work at Walmart, a bunch of kids go work at this, go work at that, go work at this, and some people, they don't understand that like Walmart is massively subsidized by the government to go ahead and give a lot of part-time jobs because they don't want to give full health insurance to their employees. And then those part-time jobs create poor people that have to get food stamps. And then those food stamps have to go ahead and basically pay, they get spent at Walmart. And so the problem I'm seeing is that, at the very fundamental levels, the Walmart levels, the McDonald's levels, stuff like that, we're going to be seeing robots do those functions, inventory checks, putting items on shelves, cashing out people, all those functions are going to be done by robots in the future. So there's not even going to be a generation of young people who can go and even get a job going into the future, because in the future, there's not going to be jobs for those intro level people. We're not going to have automatic jobs at Walmart where they can go get a job where they can do this or do that or do this or do that. There's, maybe there will be a bowling alley job, but there's not going to be a movie theater job. So, to me, the collapse is coming. I know the collapse is coming. I'm fully aware the collapse is going to happen. What do you feel the retired people are going to do when this situation comes down, when this collapse happens?
Well, backing up for a second, we talked about the politicians, and I always love them. The spin they put on everything. And remember, to be a successful politician, the most important thing you have to do is put a spin on things so you get reelected. If you don't get reelected, you're not going to be. So they're going to put a spin on things to make you think that. Now, so that's the politician thing. So I wouldn't necessarily listen to them and take it for the truth. But anyway, with regard to the transition is coming. Look, we have to transition out of the situation we're in. The situation we're in is basically stagnation. Okay, let's call it like it is. We don't have a frontier anymore. Space is there waiting for us, and that's our frontier. But we're stagnating. And I always say, if you don't grow, you stagnate. If you don't grow, you stagnate. And we are right now in a stagnation position. We should be growing and becoming a space race, getting out there, exploring the universe. What's wrong with us? It was in the 1960s when we put our foot on the moon. What happened since then? That's a long time ago. I remember the first moon landing. The video was black and white. It didn't have color. Think about that. That's a long time ago. We should be growing. We should be out there. And with regard to the kids working at Walmart and things like that, yeah, there are going to be a lot of machines doing checking. And look, people are not going to be coming to stores in the future. We're not going to be going and driving and walking up and down in aisles and this and that with people stealing things, people doing. No. Stuff's going to be brought right to your house. Or you're going to be picking it up outside. It's going to be a very, very different world. Yes, you'll have machines taking over, but let's get the kids doing something more productive than working at Walmart. Let's get them educated. Let's get them out there. Let's get them contributing to the new frontier. Guys, the writing's on the wall. It's time for us to grow. We're stagnating. So get these kids educated, get them out there, get them doing something productive, not walking around doing something a drone or a robot could do. Get them out there thinking, get them out there creating, getting out there growing AI, become part of AI. Let's get out there and let's move. The extraterrestrials, we know they're here. We see them, everyone's seeing them, photographing their ships and all this, that, and everything. They got to be looking at us wondering, when are we going to make the change from where we are? We're in stagnation. When are we going to do this thing? Now, AI is the biggest thing to help us and help us become more productive. And it's going to get rid of the people on disability because it's going to heal them. It's going to cure them. It's going to fix them. It's going to make them productive again. I mean, why go through life in pain when you can go through life being fully functional? I mean, it's coming. So again, we need to make the change. We need to make the jump. We need to get going, and we need to work on the frontier. And the other thing we got to stop doing, we act like school kids. Look at all the wars we got going around now. I mean, everyone's fighting with everyone. And the reason we're fighting with everyone is we're stagnating. We're on each other's nerves. It's like a neighborhood where it's too crowded. The last thing we need are tons more people to make the situation even worse. Look, let's get the people we got educated. Let's get them out there being productive, and let's get out in space and let's start growing. It's time, folks. Give it a shot. And with AI, try it. You might like it.
So, and the thing I've noticed is that super tech CEOs, CFOs, COOs are basically saying now, and the reason I do these videos is to kind of catch up the disabled and retired community, because they are completely removed from the reality of where technology is going. They don't know, they haven't played with it. They're not, they just haven't seen it. They don't know what quantum computers are for the most part. They don't know what AI is capable of doing. And so I guess my whole point of this is to create an understanding by people that they probably don't know how far along this thing actually is. Somebody might go to church and be like, okay, well, this is, the church where I'm at. And what they don't realize is that AI is going to directly conflict with essentially what the church identity is, how the church exists with them, and that the future of people moving forward and doing things quickly and being efficient, that's all going to be hyper, sped up by this AI. And these super CEOs, CFOs are saying it's not about going to college like it used to be. Now it's about the ability of a young person to quickly adapt and learn AI programs to be able to build things with them. And they're saying that basically the first $1 billion company where one person creates it and it has a valuation of $1 billion is coming. And it's just a single person, single creation, single et cetera. So from my experience with this, from my feeling about this, I look at the situation. I know that a lot of the disabled people are going to want to hold on to their traditional benefits. I know the retired people are going to want to hold on to their benefits. But the problem is when there's not enough people working, when there's not enough people doing the functions of a traditional capitalist market, there's not going to be any money for retirement. There's not going to be any money for disabled benefits, disability benefits in the future. What do you think that transition will look like when we don't have enough young people working, when we don't have money coming through the traditional way? Do you feel that the politicians will, start to tax essentially robots? Or do you feel like they will just, find a way to slowly sunset these Social Security programs?
Well, look, the transition is coming, folks. Whether you like it or don't like it, sit back. It's coming. And yes, there's going to be a situation, a time interval there where their money's going to be a little tight and the recipients are going to be going down because they're getting healed or getting fixed by the very thing that's causing the problem. So I say, they're going to have to deal with it in the short run. And it's the old thing, with the executives. I remember in the 1980, I think when the first IBM PC came out, the older people were the last ones in the world to use the computers. It was the younger crowd that really used it. And I remember when the spreadsheet program came out, that really made the computer go, because now accountants and things could use it. But the old generation is going to have to move on. It's slow, and whether you're a regular person or you're a CEO or this or that, change is coming, folks. Change is coming. It's coming in a big way. Now, with every change, there's people who are going to love it, and there are people who are not going to love it, and there's going to be a little pain along the way. I mean, we're just going to have to deal with it. And I think what I'm hearing here is the thought that, okay, we're going to be healing the disabled, but on the other hand, there are not going to be as many people working in to pay the money in for Social Security to fund it, and that there's going to be an interval there where there may not be enough money to fund the the disabled or the Social Security or the old, the young, the infirm, whatever. In that case, I say then we better get AI going to fix these people, and we better get that thing moving quickly and stop fighting it and move along with it to get these people healed so that they're not going to be disabled. They're not going to need that. The old, like myself, hey, 80 years old. Come on. I'm going on 36 mentally. There's no reason why I can't be. I could do any number of things, and I do. I'm very active. There's no reason why we can't be doing that. I mean, why do we have to have mandatory retirement? No, I don't know. What is it? 67, 70, whatever it is. There's no reason for that. We could be working till we're 80, 90. And in time, we could be working more. We won't need Social Security. But there's that little transitional time period in there where things could get a little tight, a little rough. And the naysayers will be screaming, rest assured, ABC, NBC will be, here we go. Fox News, I turn it on every morning to see who killed who. All we get is the negativity from these folks. We don't get the positive stuff. No one wants to watch the positive stuff. Everyone likes to watch the negativity. But anyway, there's going to be a little interval in there where there may not be enough money to cover this, and we'll have to fund it other ways, or we're going to have to get off our ass and fix these people and make them better and use AI and accelerate things with AI so that we run out of recipients before we run out of money.
And that's an interesting point. So at what point, at what percentage do we heal the disabled? Because, disabled people, the background thought, you have two lines of logic, right? You have the one line of logic of those people who say, I'm super bad, I'm never going to improve, I'm horrible, I'm really, really bad, this is terrible, I'm never going to get better. And then you have the other side, which is like, how do I get better? How the F do I get off of these benefits and go back to work because this sucks? And so you have these two logics. And, the one logic usually comes from people who really haven't had higher level jobs, they've never really worked much, or if they did work much, they were always like in a shitty job that they hated. They always had a manager they hated, whatever. And so those individuals, they don't want to go back to work. They might donate their time here or there, but they don't want to go back to work. And then you have these other individuals over here who are like, you know what I really want to do? I want to go ahead and basically, find a way to cure this disease, find a way to beat this virus, find a way to beat this cancer, find a way to blah, 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 blah. And then they're constantly going out trying to get new medical treatment until usually they get exhausted because the doctors have no other way of doing something that would cure the problem. So I guess from my perspective, considering like those two entities, those two methodologies within the disabled mentality, the thing that I would say is, at what percentage will we see a massive change? Because look, let's say that we take 10% of the disabled and we cure them. Okay, that's massive savings on behalf of the trust fund. Let's say we do 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%. At what point do we get people, at what point have we saved the trust funds? Let's say, for example, with retired people, okay, so let's say that we've got this situation, right, where we're like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and make all the people who want to live another 30 years, live another 30 years. But in order to do that, they've got to go ahead and they've got to go back to work, and they've got to go ahead and, basically, go back to, the style of when they were in their early 60s and going back to work. Obviously some of them would need a lot more enhancements, a lot, because the blue collar workers, the electricians, the block layers, the roofers, the tilers, their bodies are all messed up, So I guess, if you were to fix them and make them better and do this and do that, but then the question becomes, we're then feeding a massive amount of people, disabled that we've cured, elderly that we've increased their lifespan and cured. We've then increased a massive amount of potential working class at a time where AI is overtaking jobs in the hundreds of thousands and then into the millions of jobs that it will be taking over. I mean, to me, the government would want retired people to pass away. And the reason why is that they don't want to have to pay for them anymore. They don't want them sitting on the program. So like, okay, let's take that for example. Let's say that we did cure 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%. We made 20, 40, 60% of the retired live longer. I mean, I don't see them being able to get jobs with these robots being able to do all this stuff. They got robots that can lay tile, robots that can enter information into a computer, robots that can vote. We've seen that one. They got all kinds of robots at this point. what do you think the government's going to do if they've got all these people living longer that basically can't find work?
Well, like I said, there's going to be a transition period there. And first of all, the first thing we've got to get rid of in this is all the fraud. All these organizations and everything are having to deal with fraud. I've watched the news, and people are just taking money and doing nothing for it. So let's clean up the system first of all, so we know at that point what the numbers are. Right now, we're paying out a lot of money, and frankly, I don't think we know where the hell it's going. Okay, we've got these wars, we've got everything going, money going out the door, and we don't have a clue. And we're just finding out about the fraud. I mean, it's just terrible. So let's clean that up. Once we get that cleaned up, we truly know what the numbers are. Now, the question here is, what are we going to do with the people who become productive again when they're going to be competing with robots? Well, yeah, I mean, there is going to be some competition there. But, robots are not going to be able to do anything, and it's going to take a while. By the way, this is my resident alien here.
That's Jaggy.
That's Mr. Jagger. He's my resident. He's my extraterrestrial. Yeah. He's my buddy. Anyway, that's it. There's going to be a transition here. Sure. Let's get these people back to work. Let's get them educated. It's going to be a while, folks, before we have robots taking over everything. Come on, this isn't going to happen tomorrow. And if we can get these people, a little healthier and going, they can be doing a lot of things. There are going to be new areas, new developments, this and that. But there will be a transitional period, and then it might be a little painful for some. There's no doubt about it. With every change, there's good and there's bad. Get used to it. My feeling is, let's get these people healthy again. Let's get them being productive again. There's a lot of jobs out there. Look, I can't go any place today without seeing help wanted signs. Help wanted signs. They're all over the place, and people can't. You can't find people to do work anymore. It's like they don't want to work. And, if you make it too easy for them and you give them too many benefits, this, that, and the other thing, why go to work? I mean, you're going to have an element of people who want to go back to work, who can fill some of these jobs for these signs I see all over the place. And you're going to have those who don't want to go back to work. Well, make it a little tougher for those who just don't want to do a damn thing and sit on their ass all day. Make it a little tougher. Make it a little tougher, and make them want to go out and do something productive. Of course, the politicians aren't going to want to do that because they might lose their vote. And if they lose their vote, they won't get reelected. And that's tantamount to Armageddon. So we're going to have to clean this up a little bit. One, let's get some of the people back to work. Let's start filling some of these jobs. Well, these signs I see everywhere. It's on the back of vehicles. Help wanted, hiring. Hey, what? I don't see robotics filling those jobs. But anyway, I think we need to get the people back to work. And there's going to be an element, that don't want to work. Point blank, period. Okay. Well, let's make it a little rougher for them. So maybe they will go out and get a part-time job and do something. So my feeling is the change is coming, folks. Like I said, kick off your shoes, watch the show. Either get with the program or you're going to be left behind. You're going to be one of those few who gets left behind in the system. And there's always a few of them. Like they said, people who use AI are going to really benefit from it, and certainly overlord over those who don't.
I guess from my perspective, and keep in mind, I've been talking with a lot of political advisors over the past couple of weeks because, everybody got crunched and then everybody was wondering what was going on. And then everybody's wondering what the future is. And the thing that I've noticed, which has been a very big change, is that traditionally, when I talk to Democrats that were political advisors, they really know the system. They study it, their understanding of it, they're really solid on it. And then when I would talk to the Republican advisors, they were a shit show. They didn't know how Social Security really worked, all the little caveat laws, what happened, what the restrictions were, what the problems were, etc. But that's changed over the past 6 months to a year and a half. Republicans have all of a sudden become really hyper fixated on the rules of Social Security. And one of the things that is in the talks that I'm a little worried about is that basically they're looking at disability in two potential ways. What are potential future work requirements that they can have to get people beyond what already exists to go back to work? And then number two, what is a version of Social Security disability benefits that's more like VA benefits, where you could potentially get part-time benefits, meaning like instead of you being unable to work full-time and getting the full check, maybe you'd be only able to work part-time and then get a partial check so that they wouldn't have to pay the person full-time. They could slide them down a category and pay them less of a check and force them to go and get more, basically go and get work somewhere. And so, and I understand the point of it is that, work if you can work, yada, yada. I get that. And a lot of conversations I have with people, are where basically they look at this situation and they say, okay, how do I go ahead and make the most sense out of my future? And a lot of that conversation is about how they need to choose. Do they want to go out and work and earn this much money? Or do they want to basically not work and then receive their VA check and their, SSDI check and receive just barely as much money that's not going to be taxed, which actually sometimes makes it more than if they were to go out there and work. And so the point is, a lot of these people don't realize, but the amount of benefits they could get, especially if they're a veteran or they have an additional pension or something like that, are more than if they'd go get another job that would pay this amount or this amount or this amount. So what I'm seeing is this changeover. And what I'm trying to explain to people, and I'm trying to get them to understand, and that's the thing too, people call me all kinds of names with this stuff. They call me a fearmonger. They call me a radical. They call me a this or that. But consistently, I've been damn right about things that they're trying to do, change, modify, etc. I mean, the most recent thing I was right about that everybody thought I was wrong about, even legal scholars, a legal scholar said they did the reports that said that Trump could not cut off food stamps. He couldn't cut off those types of federally funded benefits. It's never been done, couldn't be done, yada, yada. And then I did that video where I read through all the statute pool rules, right? And they specifically have in there how they could cut it off and how they could do this, not just for administrative costs, but also for the benefits in general. And then I got a call from one of those guys saying, hey, that's not really, it can't be done. I said, maybe it could. I mean, look at this. These are the pool rules. And so then later that night, right? I think it was the next day or later that night, Trump goes and cancels all of those child healthcare based benefits, will not pay out a dime until they set up new programs and systems to make sure that there's no more fraud, because, the Somali fraud was extreme, So the thing is this, I'm just trying to get people educated on what's coming, because there's really nothing in the system as it exists that will get them to the point where they understand how to prepare themselves. Now, how should they prepare themselves? There's no way that they can save. They don't make enough money, right? I mean, I know some people love Biden. They raised him in their garage and fed him until he, became president. I know that there's an insanity level out there of people who just absolutely loved him. Was he mentally competent? No. Was he mentally capable of being the president? No. Was it weird that billionaires basically and Hollywood elites put him in a position just because of his name, his background, what he could be? Yeah, it was weird because, there's a lot of Democrats that could have done an awesome job. Not Harris, I will say that. Definitely not Harris. Definitely not Tim Walz. But the bottom line is, I'm concerned that these disabled don't know their entire system is based off of capitalism. Their entire system is based off of new humans being born, paying taxes, creating money, pushing the thing forward, yada, yada, yada. I'm concerned because they don't get it. And if they don't get that capitalism is what fills the banks, the trust funds, then they're not going to get that, hyper woke will destroy the thing that keeps them alive. And that's concerning to me. What do you think about the logic centers inside people's brains when it comes to the future of benefits and their voting? Because it's wild. I talk to people and they push we need to do this. I'm like, well, that's going to have fewer people being born and fewer people getting taxed. Well, yada, yada, yada. I'm just amazed America hasn't done worse. I mean, we're lucky because we have this many companies, this many people making money, this many people innovating to get us to the point where basically, the company knows the United States hasn't gone under. I mean, what do you think about the future of people and how they vote?
Well, when it comes to voting, Everyone has their personal bias. And what I've said before is if you don't grow, you stagnate. And what we're seeing in this country now, frankly, most of the world, is we're stagnating. We're stagnating. We're not growing. And that's a problem of leadership. And when you stagnate, you lose motivation. You don't want to work. Why work? Fraud goes up, everything goes up, and you tend to vote for the people who are going to give you a free handout. Hey, if I don't have to work, I can sit on my ass. I can get a lot of money. Hey, let someone else pay the bill. And that's going to have to change. And that's a leadership thing. And I think it's one of the things Trump is trying to do. And he's running into resistance along the way. You know, I love these activist judges. There's an old expression, being a lawyer, justice is blind. Justice is blind. I don't know who dreamed that one up, but that's the biggest crock of bullshit I ever heard in my life. I remember a long time ago when I was in law school, I took a course in legal writing, and we were given some issues to go out and support one side or the other. I don't remember what the issue was, but I went to the prof and I said, you know, look, I've looked up the law. I looked at this. I can make plausible arguments on this issue going either way. And he looked at me and smiled and said, exactly. Just support the side you happen to pick. And, you know, justice isn't blind. It's as biased as anything. It's deplorable. And these judges are awful. Roberts needs to do something. And of course, he's totally useless. So nothing's happening. He's stagnated. He doesn't know what to do. Anyway, we have stagnated. Now, what are we going to do to turn this around? I think the AI revolution is one of the biggest things to give us the proverbial kick in the ass we need. And folks, my advice is don't fight AI. Don't fight it. It's coming. It's here. It's everything. Even the sermons when you go to church are largely written by AI today. Folks, I hate to tell you this, but the ministers, the priests, the whatevers, they use AI to do their sermons. Get used to it. It's great. It's coming. Jump on the revolution. Go with it. Become productive again. Trust me, you won't break. You won't die. Get off your ass and do something. It's time to stop looking for the free handout. My God, get out there and contribute to the system. There's plenty of jobs out there. There are plenty of small companies that can't afford massive robotics. You know, we're talking Walmart, we're talking Target, and those kind of places. You know, yeah, they're going to have some robots. I see them going around the store doing something. I don't know what, but whatever they're doing something. But there are tons of small businesses out there. There are signs all over the place. Help wanted. Guys, gals, what are you waiting for? Do it. And jump into the AI bandwagon. Start looking at AI. You know what? You might actually like it.
So I guess the big thing that I'm looking at is I don't think Republicans in the political sense have figured out yet that if they really want to get people to work and earn money and pay down this debt, right? This ridiculous, 38, I think it's at 0.4 or 0.5 trillion in debt. If they really wanted to go ahead and pay that down, they would need every section of society to essentially be out there working, earning, and paying taxes. Now, the big problem is, we just saw with this whole Somali thing that people are getting kind of smart that if they were able to give away that much money, and that much money was able to go, let's say 8-9 billion to essentially these Somalian fraudsters, then obviously we are paying too much in taxes. And if you were to calculate that across the country, although, obviously in Republican states there wasn't as much fraud, you could see that, only people earning over, and they mapped it out, over $150,000 would have to pay taxes. Only people earning over $250,000 would have to pay taxes. Only people earning over $500,000 would have to pay taxes based off of how much fraud they could get rid of to make it still work. My thing is this, because, Social Security taxes everybody up to, I think it's like 187 or whatever, $1,000 worth of earnings. My thing is this. I don't think the Republicans have realized that if they want people to essentially go and get a job and try to work and do something as a retired person, as a disabled person, but specifically as a disabled person, that they need to increase the amount of SGA, substantial gainful activity, that they could potentially go out and earn once they're found disabled. And the reason why is people are not going to go out and try and work and earn if they're on disability benefits, if they're only allowed to earn a very small amount before getting kicked off of the benefits. They've got to be able to earn twice that before it makes sense to take the risk to go out there and do that. Now, the government has programs, Ticket to Work program, 9-month trial work period, stuff like that. But the whole thing with it is it's basically such a low amount. And the reason they keep it as a low amount is because they want the super impoverished class to try and crawl their way out. And that monetarily makes sense for the super impoverished class with the Walmart jobs, the McDonald's jobs, et cetera. But you got a ton of disabled people who used to have jobs that paid $150,000, $500,000, $1 million a year. And those people, there's no way that it makes sense for them to have to deal with, the SGA amount, because it's just way too low. It doesn't make sense. So I think Republicans need to realize that. I think they need to get on that band train. And then you have the other side. You have Democrats. The Democrats at this point really have no system. They really have no, they don't have a methodology to fix this. The only thing that they're saying is tax the rich, and when in doubt, tax the rich, right? But the problem is the rich create all of the opportunities by creating all of the businesses. You go to the grocery store, some rich guy owns that. You go to you go to specifically the hardware store, a rich person owns that. You go to whatever store you want that's really big, that can hire hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, a rich person owns that. So when we're like, okay, well, we need to make small businesses a thing again, we do, right? But those are not the things that are going to make hundreds and hundreds of jobs real quick. They're just not. Is that where future innovative companies are going to come out? Future companies for space, creating space tools, for creating space rockets, for creating this or that. Yes, they're going to come out of those, but they have to be super funded, and the government has to super fund those. And they get the funding specifically from a lot of the taxes of the middle class, paying all those, and the middle class mostly works for rich people. So the taxing the rich is just going to F everything up. You want to mass tax them? Fine, they're just going to pass the actual cost along to all the people. But at the end of the day, if we don't see, that's part of the problem too. With disability benefits, people take a sigh. They get them, they relax, they think, okay, I'm set. They're not set. It's not 15 years ago. It's not 30 years ago. It's not 50 years ago. They're not set. The way the program works now is that they're going to be reviewing people so aggressively, removing people so aggressively that you're not going to have the expectation that for the rest of your life, you're going to be on disability benefits. And so as a result of that, my feeling is that like disabled people, depending on what their impairment is, they've got to be aware. If they've got a physical impairment, there's some sort of cure for it. Remember, the SSA at some point is going to be real excited to create a future settlement program where they settle you out to go get a surgery and then basically from there go back to work. Like they're going to have, because it's just so expensive, and even inherent with that, we see it as disability attorneys all the time where the judges don't want to approve people under 50 because that's the ratio. At 50 and up, people don't live, super long for the program to cost this much. But if you approve somebody going way, way back in time to when they're 18 or 15 or 25 or whatever, and they applied when they're 13 and now they're 18 years old or 15 years old or 17 years old, whatever, and they're approved and they get their benefits, they got to pay that person benefits for the rest of their life. And so, unless they kick them off. So I guess a big thing here is considering like artificial intelligence. How do you see artificial intelligence helping? And I see it helping initially, but then I see it hurting the disabled massively because artificial intelligence is now integrated into the SSA in a very, very big way where it's going through medical files looking for any notations where people have improved. And if it finds improvement, they use that to kick people off of benefits. So how do you think AI, specifically for disabled, retired, will be used over the next couple of years? What do you think?
Well, backing up a second to some things you said, heaven forbid heaven forbid, some people might have to go out and get a job. I mean, oh my God, what a horrible, horrible thought for a lot of people. They might have to do something productive. There are a lot of people out there now who are very capable of going out and doing productive things. I mean, just take the fraud out of the equation. Now, there's another interesting thought as you were talking, and I was thinking, going back to my basic economic training, even with the fraud and this and that, when the government pours money into the economy, which is what they're doing with fraud, and which they're doing with a lot of this disability stuff, they're dumping money into the economy. That used to be called pump priming. Pump priming. And what the hell is pump priming? When you throw money into the economy, that gives people money to spend. And when they spend, they buy things. And when they buy things, things need to be made to do that, and on and on and on. The problem with pump priming that they found, we did this back when we had the economy's collapse, is it tends to be inflationary. You're dumping money into the economy and there's no productivity in return. So that tends to be inflationary and drive prices up. But it is a form of pump priming, and it does make people spend. Now, a lot of this money could be going out of the country. I'm sure it's that too. So on a worldly basis, maybe on some level, it's helping. I don't know. I think it's inflationary. I think it's not. I think it has to stop. But a lot of people might have to go out and actually get a job. I mean, what a horrible, horrible thought for a lot of people. Now, a lot of people out there are going to say, well, I'm incapable of working. Oh, bullshit. I see a lot of this disability stuff, and a lot of these people could get out there and do a lot of things. But why? Why do anything? Anyway, is AI going to help down the road? Is it going to hurt? AI is the greatest thing that's coming down the pike to give us the kick in the ass we need to get going. Remember, if you don't grow, you stagnate. We're not growing now, we're stagnating. But AI is coming in and causing us to change. It's causing a problem. Why are we even having this discussion? We're having this discussion because people are getting nervous. AI is going to, the inference is it's going to take all the jobs. We're all going to be out of work, and we're going to be replaced by robots. Well, if you want to watch a science fiction horror movie, go on TV at night. I mean, there's tons of these things on there. The reality is something very, very different. There's plenty of jobs out there. There's plenty of small companies that will never be able to afford the robotics that the Walmarts are going to need. So you don't work at the Walmarts. And remember, with every funeral, you get a little change. The old will die off eventually. The younger will come up, and they'll be more educated. They'll have the opportunity. We don't have to go through this educational system now and run up millions of dollars in debt because we have to pay these ridiculous institutions to get a PhD. Look, join the bandwagon, jump on. Take advantage of AI. It will help you. If you're not using it and you don't know what the hell it is, go on Grok, go on ChatGPT, and probably a million other sites. Ask them all your questions, esoteric, make it metaphysical questions, reality questions, and just look at what they say. It's amazing. I use it for technical questions on equipment and things like that, and I'm amazed at the answers I get back. I have to spend all day researching manuals to come up with that kind of stuff. It's just a new world, and my only advice to all of you listening: don't fight it, join it, grow so you don't stagnate. Give it a shot. You won't break.
So, I mean, the big thing that I'm seeing with the government is they are planning on changing the DOT, the Dictionary of Occupational Titles, because that book is what we use to define if somebody's disabled with a grid out / vocational allowance, which is what most people watching this show receive. They've received vocational allowance in some form, an element 5 approval. If they got a grid out, that's just a special statute for they were older and we gave them a break. So what a lot of people don't realize about the way they were found disabled is that they were found disabled because a book that essentially hasn't been updated since realistically the 70s. They did a few updates in the 80s, but it was mostly the 70s. The jobs in that book, most of them do not exist in modern day in the way that they were performed in the 70s because we got computers. Well, the new book that the SSA is coming out with, the new system, is including computer jobs. It's starting to include future artificial intelligence activities to include like what these new jobs will be considering AI. And so the thing is, what a lot of these disabled don't understand, that they don't realize, they feel like they're in their seat of comfort. They feel like they're in their seat of strength, which they shouldn't, because they don't realize that the thing that got them found disabled, right? Even though the rules, they have to use the old rules to apply to these individuals when re-adjudicating them. The problem is that if they have any shows of improvement, which a lot of disabled people have, because once they stop working, once they've been, basically, treating something for years, you're likely to see some improvement somewhere, some impairments. Some impairments, they just get worse and worse and worse. But some impairments, right, when it's just, it's a back issue or this issue, musculoskeletal, some they go in for surgery, a cardiovascular, respiratory, whatever, sometimes they're getting better over time. And all they got to do is tip that little thing to get an adjudicator that says, no, they improved. They improved. But what they don't realize is that when they go through that adjudication after they've basically, gotten a denial, right? After they've gotten their denial and have to reapply and go through the reapplication process, they're not going to be ruled on by the same book that they had back in the day. So they have to do whatever they can to keep their benefits if they want to keep their benefits, because the reapplication, they're going to be ruled on a different adjudicatory book for jobs available. And what a lot of these disabled don't realize is that, okay, and it makes sense. Take, for example, a disabled person that, became disabled 15 years ago. Getting that person to learn computers, because they had a shut off. They might know Facebook, they might know, YouTube, they might know some basics on a computer, but they're not going to know modern day computer programs. They're not going to know Grok. They're not going to know ChatGPT. They're not going to know all these different new programs that exist out there. They're not going to, they're not going to know the modern version of Final Cut Pro, Logic, etc. So to take that person and then say, okay, cool, now you can go back to work, and to adjudicate them based off of the new book. And the new book says, it gets rid of all these jobs of people that were like addressers. You'd have some person sitting there writing out addresses onto envelopes, right? Preparing envelopes to be mailed out. Like that person, that job doesn't exist anymore. A computer does that with a printer. And now you have AI that can hyper automate, hyper customize all of that. So what happens is you've got these disabled that live in this false reality, this false world of safety. And a lot of them, and this is the craziest thing for me, I get people who have been on disability for 10, 15, 20, 25 years, and they call me up and they're totally flabbergasted that the SSA is doing a review and has decided after 4 other reviews that they're no longer disabled. And I'm like, okay, well, cool. Where are you going for medical? Well, I don't go to medical. Why would I go to medical? They can't do anything. And I'm sitting there just like, where did you miss the whole point of you have to upkeep your benefits? Your job is to upkeep your benefits. You are the advocate for your impairments to show the SSA what you need to show them, that you are still severe. You got to have vocational opinion letters saying that you still can't work. Medical opinion letters. What are your thoughts? Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're sitting here going through this show. We're dancing.
Yeah.
Let's not bullshit each other. Let's stop dancing for a second. A lot of these so-called disabled people aren't working, aren't going out. Yeah, they've got some impairments. They've got this, they've got other things, but they're not doing it because they don't want to.
It's financial too, because if they were, the taxes, they don't realize how bad the taxes have gotten.
But they don't want to. Look. Where there's a will, there's a way. Anyone ever hear that expression, or is that something I dreamed up this morning when I woke up? Where there's a will, there's a way. You get out. I happen to review a lot of disability cases here and there. And a lot of these people could be doing things if they wanted to get out and do it. Now, you got to want to do it, folks. I mean, look, sitting home, wherever that is, waiting for some check to come in, doing nothing. Maybe you're working under the table, maybe you're not. I mean, that's got to get a little dull, a little fast. You need things to do. You need to grow or you stagnate. And my response to all this is get out, give it a shot, do something. don't just base it on economics. Don't base it, that my whole world is ruled by economics. What about your mental well-being? What about your consciousness? What about your growth? What about your mental state? Get out there, grow, try it. You won't break, as I've said before. A lot of this has to do with wanting to do it. Just get out there. Don't sit home. Don't do nothing. I don't care how disabled you are. There's something you can do.
I think like the big thing that I see that scares me about it is that you've got two groups of disabled. You have the group of disabled that there's no way they can work. There's no way that it's just for the rest of their life, there's no way they can work. And then you have the group of disabled where there's some potential. There's definitely some potential. And, don't get me wrong. Like I work with thousands of people every single year for disability benefits across the United States. And what I've come to learn is that the weirdest part, and I'll say this, like when you talk with people who are really, really disabled, the first things that are coming out of their mouth is the medical analysis as to what's actually happened to them with the types of, reports, diagnostics, labs, etc., that have been done to them over the past so many years. And then when you get somebody who really isn't usually as severely impaired, it's all emotional bullshit where they're telling me a story about why they feel they're really bad. And to me, that's because the person is in survival mode when they're telling me about this surgery, this surgery, this surgery, this thing happened, because they know in their brain these things occurred because they can't survive, they can't work, they can't do stuff. But there is a whole host of people out there on disability benefits who could do an at-home job for a couple hours a day without any restriction, typing into a computer, doing this, doing that. And what's worrying me about it is that a lot of these people will be completely unable to catch up once AI really takes off, because you could take a human with capacity to do some work, but unless the Social Security Administration is willing to have better training programs for jobs and stuff like that, like the VA wants people to get out there and do something. Even when they're found disabled, they want them to get out there and do something, because, veterans sitting at home all day getting angry with, PTSD, depression, anxiety, back impairments, could be whatever got them, could be they were in a toxic situation, something got them while they were working at one of the camps. It could be anything. And so the big thing for me is that, and I get why they do it, because, veterans are trained, killing machines. At the end of the day, they're trained to be able to do this stuff. And so most of them. So at the end of the day, they want them to have an outlet. The Social Security Administration is not worried about people really having an outlet at that same level. I mean, sure, they have the Ticket to Work program. Sure, they have they have a pamphlet. They got a pamphlet that they can hand out. But the point that I'm getting at is, and what's really upsetting about this is, I want to find a way that the disabled can make sense in the future. And I don't see the disabled making any effort to make that make sense. And I don't see the politicians making any effort to make that make sense. What I see is a lot of disabled people, and I'm reading the chat right now. I'm reading like the level of snark and ego and like bullshittery from some of these comments. The level of ego of some of these people is like, it's up there, it's big. And, and I smile because they don't realize what's coming. They don't realize that they're going to have programs in the future where there's partial disability benefits where you won't be able to get onto the full scale program. They don't realize that in the future, the jobs to go ahead and pay for all this stuff are going to disappear. They don't realize in the future that the percentage of them where they just haven't been going to the doctor and that they're okay just staying home, that like those people are going to be targeted to be kicked off of the program. And what's interesting is that I read these comments and people make me out to be the asshole, because I'm the one asking the questions of what do we do with all these disabled that aren't really, really severe. They're severe enough to get benefits through vocational allowance. They're not severe enough to get it through a listing level approval. What do we do with these individuals when the program falls apart? Because, they're going to take that trust fund for the disabled and put it right into the retired trust fund. And then there's just not going to be money left over. And that is a sizable problem. And I see the egos of people in there where they're like, these are my benefits. I paid for them. Yeah, but you put idiots in charge of financially controlling what happens to them. the investments that they made with your money was moronic. And it honestly, at many times, seemed intentionally criminal. And I don't even mean at the Tim Waltz level. I mean, that to me was a very clear sign of intentional. He intentionally did things. He basically threatened employees that we're catching now in the news that worked for the state government for the release of these funds to these fraudsters. I mean, Tim Waltz, a lot of politicians are Tim Waltzes. A lot of them are like that. They're just trying to keep their jobs. They're trying to keep things rolling. They don't care if it's wrong. They don't care if it should be fixed. And my point is, when I see some of these comments from people in here in the chat, it does blow my mind because they're not worried about it. Or if it does come into their head, their first thing is knee-jerk reaction. How do I hurt this guy telling me this? How do I hurt this person telling me what's coming over the hill? And I've been the asshole for a long time, so I'm okay with that. I've been the mean guy. Oh, he's just fear-mongering, etc. But I've been right, and I've been consistently right, and I haven't been feeding people a bunch of bullshit about some magical Christmas, some magical spring, some magical fairy type of stimulus payment that they're going to get, like the other channels do. I mean, they constantly pump BS. And yet me, the guy who says, hey guys, I don't know if you know, but political advisors are talking about this, then I'm the asshole. Now, I will say this, and I think this is important. I think this is very important. Most people on disability benefits, they don't get enough money to survive, right? Most people on disability benefits, you would think that they're trying to starve them out with the COLA, the cost of living adjustments being so low, that one of their tactics is to starve them out and get them to go back to work. But what they don't understand, and what these politicians don't understand, and what the SSA is starting to do with these new, SEO options, SOCs, and none of these people know about SOCs, and basically SOCs, the new books, the new vocational outlines they're using. They don't understand that the world they were found disabled on is not going to be there in 2 to 3 years from now. And the programs that exist to protect them, the rules. Okay, when we had the prior commissioner, when Trump was in the first time, every time we as attorneys would find something and fight something and do something, we'd notice the next year in the Palms, that rule would be changed. And it would be anti-claimant, pro-SSA. They don't realize where it's going. And it's frustrating to me because I'm just looking at this thing. I'm just like, guys, if you don't start to think about this stuff, then you are going to be in an even worse position, and your position already is shit. So that's what I try to get out there.
Okay. I love this show. I love sitting here. I'm jealous that you get all the negative comments and no one calls me an asshole.
Now, some of them do. Some of them do.
This is depressing me. Come on, guys. Let's see some response here. Look. Humans. We are the most interesting creatures I've ever come across. You all amaze me. I'm always shocked at no, I'm not. But the negativity in mental thinking. This goes back to when I used to work with lawyers, and I, being one myself, and I'd ask them to do something. They'd always come out and give me 20 reasons why it will not work. And I used to yell at them and say, I didn't hire you to give me bullshit. I hired you to figure out how it could work. I get the same thing with these disabled people on disability, this and that. I'll ask them, why can't you go out and work? They talk for 5-10 minutes, and then at the end, I'll say to them again, now tell me again why you can't work. I don't get an answer as to why they can't work. All I get is the negativity of this, that, and this, and this, and that, and not one positive idea about what they might try doing going into the future. Well, folks, we got to stop this negative thinking. I mean, we're great at why it can't work. I mean, impossible, this, that, and the other thing. Forget all that. Start thinking, shift your gear thinking now as to why it can work. What can I do to make this work? I know this is going to be earth-shattering, something far straight from Russia, straight from outer space. But, if you try hard and start thinking about why it could work, maybe you'll come up with some answers. And look at the positive view. Stop this negative thinking all the time. Yeah, I know, you don't have the money, you can't do this. I got got all that. Now, what do we do to make it work? Here I am. I've paid in all my life to this system. I'm going to have to live to be 150 to get back what I paid into this system. So I put my day in it, but I'm as active as anyone could be. In fact, as I'm sitting here doing this, I mean, hey, I could be downstairs relaxing, but I'm up here doing this. Look, we got to stop this negative thinking. And please understand, if you don't grow, what happens? Even now, you stagnate. And folks, you have stagnated. So it's time to shift your thinking to start growing. Stop this negative bullshit. Let's start going at what we can be doing.
And I guess like the big thing is that I'm reading the comments and everybody's like, he's dystopian. He doesn't understand. He hasn't had it like us, yada, yada. And I'm not going to say his status when it comes to disability. I'm not going to say his status when it comes to the things he's overcome. I would say he's overcome 99% more than the people in the chat. But he's also had a lot of medical, a lot of this, a lot of that. And he has a very different outlook, which is, I think, what he's trying to produce here. The ironic thing is when I have to prepare people for hearings, the big thing is they're unprepared because they constantly have this ideology of the judge will just understand. The judge will just get it. The judges mostly read your claims 10 minutes before the hearing, sometimes only 5. They get your testimony, then they hand it off to the writer, and then they ask the writer to look through the record and figure out, is it an appropriate decision the way they want to lean with it? And what I'm saying to you guys is they're changing element 4 and element 5 massively. The book that they used to use to define what your past relevant work was and what other jobs you could potentially do in the national economy are getting changed. The book that we use to define if you're disabled is getting changed, which means that we're going to have a massive cultural change on who gets disability benefits, which means that we're going to have a massive change as to the process that we do for the 8-step sequential process and the 5-step sequential process. 8-step, you're trying to keep your benefits. They're trying to go ahead and review them. 5-step, you're trying to get your benefits for the first time. My point is, with this situation, I am concerned that a lot of the disabled, and some of you, you're never going to work again. There's no way. And that this conversation isn't for you. You are stuck on the benefits that you receive going forward, no matter what. It is what it is. But then there's other individuals where there's potential to go ahead and have a different life, a different thing. What I'm trying to get across to a lot of you, and I know this is heresy. This is, how could you? This is a sin to say these things. And I get it. Well, and again, I'm always the asshole. I know that. I'm always the asshole with this thing, and I get it. And it is what it is. But if you don't recognize, if you don't realize that going forward, the SSA is changing a lot of its structural systems with how it decides if you are and can stay on disability benefits, then, you got to realize, like, what are you going to do? And, that's the thing is, a lot of people out there, even people I work with that I get vocational approvals for, I know that they can do some job. I know that they can do some part-time job. And what concerns me, especially with AI, is that AI makes people on disability benefits illiterate in a vocational environment. Okay. And the problem is, at some point, they may come to you and say, hey, we're going to take away the benefits. Now, some of you are so severe, they're never going to do that. If you're not able to figure out from this conversation that you might be severe enough, and they're not going to do that, and somebody who might not be as severe, or they improve over time, and then they could potentially do that. Like, there's no help for you if you can't differentiate those two. There's a dichotomy. You're so severe, you're never going to work. And then those who are basically capable of doing something. But my point to you is, you got 4 years of Trump. You got you're going to have 3.5-ish years of Bisognano as the commissioner. His big push is essentially AI. What do you think AI is going to do for the people on disability benefits? It is going to search through your record better than a human could to find all the ways that potentially you've improved. They are going to structurally improve the way a system can be scanned. You are the system, as to whether or not you are going the right direction, this, that, whatever. And what a lot of you don't realize is that you are not in total control over what the metrics are of your medical existence. You're not in total control for some of your impairments of your labs. And so again, it's just, I'm trying to like get people to realize, don't be so comfortable in the belief that you're going to have benefits forever. There were a lot of idiots, a lot of real idiots out there who receive benefits, who would then make fun of people trying to get benefits and say, it only took me 2 months, it only took me 3 months, it only took me 4 months, it only took me 5 months, it only took me 6 months because I'm so disabled, right? And then 3 weeks later, a year later, I get a call from them going, they're kicking me off of benefits. What do I do? How dare they? What I'm trying to do is get you guys to realize that when it happens, you need to be prepared. There's different kinds of prepared, right? The tax people say you need to go ahead and prepare your business by doing this stuff, right? Okay. Well, the Social Security disability attorney, America's Most Viewed, subscribed to, clicked on that person, me, that guy, this person right here is trying to say to you, you have to go ahead and make sure you're doing the right stuff to be able to keep your benefits if you want them. But also realize if you're going to be pushed into a situation where they're going to pull the check, because it happens fast. A lot of you are like, they're never going to pull a check. It's never going to happen to me. When it happens fast. You get 10 days to call them and tell them, hey, you know what? I want to keep my benefits going forward. I want to keep my benefits going through the adjudication. Then you go in front of you get your first DDS rep, then you get your second DDS rep, and then you get your ALJ hearing. You get a denial at the ALJ hearing, they cut those benefits off. That's it. That's it. That was your hearing. That was your version of a trial. That's it. So my point to you with this whole thing is I need you to care enough to learn enough about this program to understand that the future of this program is not like the comfy chair you're used to sitting in where you always feel like you're covered. It's not that way anymore. It is going to have massive evolutions over the next couple of years. They were coming, whether it was a Biden, whether it was a Trump, whether it was whatever, they're coming because they don't have I guess this is the part, if you can remember one thing from my side of this, from this video, it would be this. The politicians do not have a solution for the problem that's about to hit Social Security. The politicians do not have a way to fix it going forward. So what I'm trying to say to you is, if you expect them to make it work for you, then you are insane at a very high level. You cannot expect politicians to make it better for you. You have to find a way to make it so that you can survive. And, to be fair, the veterans are especially good at that. The veterans will pick up and move to a different state. They'll pick up and move to a different continent. The veterans will do this. The veterans will do that. The veterans do a lot of that stuff. When I asked the veterans, what did you do to your home to modify it, to improve your ability to do, functional tasks? Boom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What do you do when it comes to driving to improve your abilities to drive as a disabled person who's limited in their ability to do functional tasks? Boom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Most disabled people, I ask them the question, how did you improve your home as a result of your impairments? And let me tell you why. These judges do not look at people like you think they look at people. They are sitting there day after day, hearing the same story about why somebody can't work over and over and over again. Some of them are well prepared, like I do with a lot of my claimants. I go over the questions and over the questions. I beat the claimant up until they say the thing the right way, the right time, and give it in a manner that it makes sense. And a lot of claimants go in there because they either don't have an attorney or the attorney doesn't care, and they don't give good testimony. And the judges get worn out because they're hearing the same wah, wah, wah over and over. You have to understand the emotional context of what these judges are going through. Oh, why do I care about the judges? Well, they're the people that are going to decide if you get to keep your benefits. So they are relevant to your existence. They are relevant to your life. So the point that I'm getting at with all of this is that if you don't see it coming, now you do. AI is going to change the entire game of disability benefits, retirement benefits, etc. Having the ability to survive is not something you can let the politicians figure it out for you. Like, don't worry, the politicians will just make it make sense. Oh, man. Oh, God. I just no. Like, why would you even consider that as an even potential option? That's no, So I guess as a final thought, a lot of people have to understand the following. Some of you are never going to be able to work. Some of you will never work. But some of you are going to have to start to figure out how these programs work, how they're going to evolve, and what you're going to do about it. And I just want you to understand that, because AI is changing everything quickly.
Guys, this is a great, great time. And I'm glad you finally wrote some comments back to me telling me how great I'm doing. I'm very pleased at that. And of course, there's a few negative comments. But anyway, let's summarize this. The solution to this, the solution to all this is not the judges. It's not the system. It's not the politicians. It's you. It's you. You folks are going to have to start looking at this and recognizing that change is coming, and it's coming quickly with AI. You're the solution here. And my advice to you is very simple. Stop this negativity. Start thinking how we could make this work. Contribute to the system. Grow with it. Because if you don't grow, remember, you stagnate. And my fear is a lot of you have just stagnated. So maybe it's time to grow. Maybe it's time to think about this with a new reality. I wish you the very best, and I'm going to check out for here. This is my last comment. And I love getting feedback from you guys telling me how I don't understand and don't know anything about this. Just remember, I'm a guy who paid into this thing and probably going to have to live to be 150 to ever see any of that back. But that said, I don't care, because I contribute. Take care. Have a wonderful life.
And the thing I would say is this, this conversation where people feel egotistical enough to present the idea that nothing bad is going to happen, that nothing, that things are just going to continue the way they are. Those people are the problem, because they are like a plague to the understanding of those who actually want to figure out what they're going to do in the future. Don't be a horrible virus that infects people's minds and tells them that everything's going to be fine. Because if you do that, you are stifling their capacity to prepare themselves in the future for potential problems. And I don't mean for problems like, they should live in their basement and have tons of storage and this and that. I mean small steps that let them grow to be more protected in the future. Because let me just say this, and I think it's important. All the people who were naysayers saying nothing bad is going to happen, how dare you say that? How dare you say, well, and the reality, the politicians aren't going to be able to fix this. They're changing the books that they use to define jobs and vocational capacity. AI is going to change everything when it comes to the vocation. We don't have enough people being born to pay the taxes as it is. There is no overall plan on behalf of the American people or the politicians to be able to keep these benefits going the way they are. My point to you is just stop shitting around and learn the program and what it potentially is going to become. Because if you don't, you think your check is small now, your retirement check is going to be like 76, 78% of what it should be in 2032, 2033. If they take the disability trust fund and slip it into the retirement, which they're almost certainly going to do, imagine that, $1,500. Let me just do the quick math, one final thing before we pop off, okay? Bringing up the calculator. Everybody loves the calculator, right? We're going to bring up the calculator and do some basic math here. Oh, it didn't bring it up. Hold on. Let me get it right over here. All right. So we got the calculator. You take essentially $1,500, right? Let's do $1,500. And we're going to take away, let's say 0.23, so 23%. You're losing $345. So you take $1,500, you subtract $345, and what you end up with is $1,155. If you were to be receiving, right, in like 7-8 years from now, $1,500 per month, you would only actually be getting $1,155. It is more than crucial that you start to figure out what these rules are and how to basically survive. That's the whole argument here. And some of you feel offended by that. How dare you say that I am this? How dare you say that I am that? Well, okay, you're a little offended. I'm okay with that. But what's really going to piss you off, the grand majority of disabled have to work on this one especially. What's really going to piss you off is when you see what your doctors are writing in your diagnostic impressions about your improvements, your abilities, your this or that. And what's really going to piss you off is that now, more so than ever, AI is able to mass scan files going back 10, 15, 20 years. And what's really going to piss you off is that this whole not able to afford health insurance problem, because let's call it like it is, Obamacare failed. The Obamacare system failed. That's why we had to keep writing subsidies. That's why the Democrats wanted subsidies to keep being passed, because if the subsidies don't pass, where the government pays for a lot of people's Medicare or pays for part of it, then it becomes really clear that Obamacare, the marketplace system, I mean, even Medicare is failing too. But the point is, you will see very quickly that Obamacare failed. And my point to you with that is that, these systems that we're used to aren't holding up. We haven't made enough children. We've had too much fraud. We're spending too much abroad. It's not holding up. So I just hope, I pray, I beg that instead of being one of those egotistical people who automatically believes and knows that you'll just be fine, that you just start learning more. And that's a lot to ask from somebody who doesn't want to learn. And that's the problem. So anyways, I will catch you all a little bit later. I hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful day. This was a good talk about artificial intelligence changing things, but I want to see the disabled population learn more, push harder, and understand where the future of these benefits are going. Because no, you don't live 20 years ago. You don't live 15 years ago with this stuff. You are living in the now. You are seeing the United States of America slowly going bankrupt. You are seeing the United States of America not being able to afford its citizens properly and choosing not to. Choosing instead to allow fraud, choosing instead to hyperfund other nations, although we just had a big change in that one. No more US aid to Africa, right? So, all right, with that said, I will catch you all a little bit later. Take these things to heart, think about it, catch up, and we'll go from there. Attorney Walter Hnot, thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Please be safe, and we will go from there. And please, 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 please think about these changes coming up. I'll catch you later. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.